In this video, I'm going to discuss why Deepcharts is the best order flow trading tool and how I've implemented it into my own trading. I've traded for over 5 years with options and futures. If you've never heard of Deepcharts, that's no problem. I'm going to show you why Deepcharts is the best platform to trade futures. I'm going to be going over the difference between a normal price chart versus a Deepcharts, show you the informational edge that you get by using Deepcharts, and at the very end, I'll show you how I set up my charts and my settings so you can set up your charts just like mine and start making thousands day trading. For those of you that don't follow me on Instagram, I'm going to post a link to do so in the description because if you are a follower on Instagram, I share daily trading recaps and I talk about specific confirmations I look for on Deepcharts. And honestly, just the nitty gritty on how I trade viewing the market as an auction. The link to my Instagram will be in the description below. If you don't follow me, I would highly recommend it. I want to show you all the difference between a normal candle chart. For example, we see a nice gap down here. Price ends up moving down. We see a move up, trying to fill this gap. We end up filling this gap, but then we end up collapsing for the rest of the day. Market finds some structure here, some support, and we see a move higher. But still, if we take a look right over here, we end up rejecting this gap, right? So this looks, in my opinion, bearish, just off of price action. My ideology would be that here we are creating a lower high, right? This is a regular high, a lower high, and we're printing yet again another lower high, followed by lower lows, right? This is a regular low, followed by a lower low, and another lower low. And here we are again printing a lower high, and yet again another lower high. But what do we see here on the right? This would be blind on a simple price chart, as we just mentioned. Now, when you first open Deepcharts, your Deepcharts may look a little different than mine, but before I get into the settings that I use so you can mimic and copy my trades, first I want to get into the basics of the market's auction and the information that this platform provides to me, so I can end up using it to my advantage. So not only does Deepcharts show me the real volume behind the candles, I can actually see who is being aggressive when entering the market, which is super valuable as a day trader, especially as a scalper. Since aggressiveness equals intent in the market. Intention to move the market, that is. And this over here is exactly what I mean when I say that we can see beyond the candle, through the candle, and we can see the exact sellers and buyers coming into the market in real time. Deepcharts also shows you the historical data, which in my opinion is the greatest advantage of them all. Let me give you the example. Let's say, for example, I wasn't on my charts. Let's say I was working out, walking my dog, or whatever it may be, right? I can simply just go back in time on Deepcharts and I can see exactly where real volume was entering the market. Not only that, but Deepcharts also has an amazing tick by tick replay setting, which has personally been a great tool for me to backtest tick by tick. Instead of a traditional normal backtesting where the candle just is already formed, here on Deepcharts you actually get to see every single tick within the candle. We can see the data even clear with deep trades on Deepcharts. That being these little circles that you see here, little green circles, little purple circles here. But I get it. You might be thinking to yourself, why are these deep trades so important? And let me explain to you right now why they're so important. See, retail traders like you and I, we don't move the market, right? We're insignificant to the overall market. The real big players, the institutional traders, the market makers, right? They're the ones that are actually moving the market with substantial volume. So because of what we know from the auction market theory, and if you guys don't know what the auction market theory is, make sure to check out my previous YouTube video where I covered exactly what the AMT or the auction market theory is. And I'll leave a link down in the description below to make it easier. So as we know from the auction market theory, we have these massive participants in the market, but of course, for example, let's say you're a Citibank, right? You're a big institutional trader. You're going in with millions and millions of dollars. But of course, they're not going to get in their 70 million, 50 million, $100 million positions all at once. Because of slippage issues, auction market theory just simply not getting filled at the best price because of coming in with such an amount of volume. So how do these institutional traders get into the market? So what they do is instead of just getting in all at once, you guessed it, they break their positions into much smaller orders so they can seamlessly get into their position into the market without really moving the market too drastically. But this is where the fun begins because, of course, right, if Citibank is putting, for example, let's say $75 million, right, every single trade has a trade ID number and it goes back to the brokerage or whatever account executed the order, the trade. So for example, if Citibank is transacting this, it's not going to come out like it's Five Guys, the burger spot, transacting and making this this trade, right? It all comes back to Citibank. So this is where the informational edge comes in clutch with Deepcharts. The ability of Deepcharts, what they're able to do is they're able to piece back all these little orders that I just mentioned from these big institutional traders and place them all back into one big trade using the trade ID number. This way, you can actually see the true intention of who's trying to move the market and in which direction. I'll show you exactly how this move up was easily achievable using Orderflow and Deepcharts, even though it was kind of unseen just to the naked eye based off of price action. So in this example, we see NQ holding this value area low depicted by this blue line here. Not only that, but we see repeated failures to break under the value area low, even with substantial selling pressure here. So we attempted to break once, twice, thrice, and on the fourth time, again, we attempted to break lower, but with no real follow through. That's something to definitely pay attention to. You see the effort, you see the intention, right? You see the aggressive move, but this is the important part. Are they rewarded? That's the massive question you have to be asking yourself. Are these massive participants being rewarded? For example, these massive sellers here to the downside were not being rewarded here. They were underwater, hence why they had to sell out and the market held this value area low. Then we go on to this candle. We see aggressive sellers attempting to push the auction lower once again, holding right at this value area low, and then we see an absorption, complete absorption here by the buyers. We see two massive aggressive buyers coming into the auction and absorbing these sellers. Not only that, then we hold this value area low and we actually close above this pink line depicted as the POC. And in the very next candle, we absolutely do the dash here on NQ. But like I mentioned, this to the naked eye would have been unseen, would have been very hard to get along just off of price action here. Next, I'm going to describe my personal settings, the layouts I use on Deepcharts using Orderflow. So I'll be honest, I use a few monitors when I'm trading and I have a lot of different layouts on every single monitor. On this specific monitor, I like to have the daily volume profile here on the left-hand side with my value area lows, value area highs, POC, and the yellow line being VWAP. And of course, I also have real volume here, right here at the bottom. And in these two columns, this is where I use the daily delta profile, and this is where I use the weekly volume profile. So I get a little bit more of a macro overview of the market. I like having the daily volume profile here, so it lets me know where I am in terms of the day, in terms of the auction for the day. I also like having the weekly volume profile here, so I get to see if we're in premium or if we're in discount compared to the overall week. And I also use multi-volume day profiles so I can get a better macro overview, because this is an objective, quantitative way of viewing the market. But we'll touch more on that in another video. Let me know in the comments if you guys would like to see an in-depth video on a multi-day volume profile. On this right-hand side layout, this is where I have my footprint charts, as I mentioned before. This is where I see the aggressive sellers, aggressive buyers coming in, and I have my delta volume profile here, which is basically just the result of all these transactions on the right-hand side. I also use imbalances so I can get a better gauge on the aggressiveness of the market and of the participants. Drop a like if you enjoyed the video and at least learned one thing. Let me know in the comments what you guys learned. I'm gonna be dropping at least 1 to 2 videos just like this every single week on order flow, options flow, auction market theory, and so much more.